The number one thing schools don't teach us, but probably should. Stress management. Essentially how to manage all the chaotic thoughts that are racing through our minds on a daily basis. Life's greatest battles are fought within the silent chambers of the mind. Life is chaotic. Things will never work out as planned. We'll get fired from a job. Our friends will leave us. We will feel like we never accomplished much in our life. And if we let the negative thoughts run wild, it can and will create havoc in our minds. It will take us down to some dark places, and it will keep us from being able to move forward in positive ways. So we need tools to combat these negative thoughts. Here are a few of my favorites. 1. Recognize that though we can't control what happens to us, we can control our response. Between stimulus and response, there is a space. And that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom. 2. Write down our thoughts. Write down what we're thankful for. Even if it's just one sentence, when I see on paper what I have to be thankful for, the glass gets half full, not half empty. 3. Read regularly. Fiction or nonfiction, it doesn't matter. Reading about the world takes my mind away from my own self-consuming thoughts. I'm learning new things and it helps me to see how small I am in this big world. Number 4. Don't take myself so seriously. I don't need to be the best in everything or win every race. I like the challenge, but that doesn't mean I need to come first place every time. Life is a long marathon, not a short sprint. And managing the battles in our mind and thus the chaos in our life is a lifelong process. So don't expect you'll get this overnight. You may overcome today's challenges, but tomorrow you'll face new ones. The difference is you're better equipped to face the new, bigger challenges because you're being intentional about developing the skill set. Number 2 thing school doesn't teach us, but probably should. How to fail. More importantly, how to fail well and recover well. To teach someone a real skill, teach him how to take risk and fail. He will never learn this in school. No non-risk taker can ever teach it. We all face failures in our lives, especially if you're driven to accomplish things. That is a fact. Show me someone who says they haven't failed, and I see someone who's not being honest with themselves. And I don't fault that individual because admitting to our failures is hard. I've done it many times and I'm sure you have as well. And our school system doesn't do a great job of teaching us about failure because in a school environment, failing in something is considered bad. Getting an F on a test or a project is demonized. It marks us as someone who likely won't mount up to anything in life. Thus, many of us who have spent many years within a traditional school system tend to avoid things that have a higher probability of failure. New ventures, new innovative projects, new businesses. They terrify us. But we have to rewire our brain to recognize that failure is a good thing. Without failure, we don't learn. Without failure, we don't make true progress. And without failure, we don't create things that could change the world. As Thomas Edison famously said at the light bulb invention when asked by a reporter, how does it feel to fail 1,000 times? I have not failed. I have just found 10,000 ways that won't work. Number 3 thing school doesn't teach us, but probably should. How to deal with uncertainty. One of the main reasons why so many of us are terrified of failure is because we're also deadly afraid of the uncertain. The uncertainty of the economy, the job market, our future. But the truth is that the future is always uncertain because nothing in life is certain. The market could be booming today and tomorrow it could tank. The job market may look rosy right now, but companies could be closing their doors tomorrow. And you never thought you'd meet that special someone, but who knows what tomorrow will bring. So the key skill that we must all cultivate is to become comfortable with the uncertainties of life. Here are a couple of strategies that I personally like to use. 1, when something happens to make me feel uncertain about the future, ask the question, what has truly changed? What has actually changed about the world in the past week or the past month? And most importantly, how does it affect me? I hear all this talk about AI taking over the world, but has anything happened to drastically change my immediate situation or my goals? My guess is that most often, the answer is no. And if it's true that it can affect us in the near future, let's work to figure out a new plan. There is no need to panic and worry. And 2, accept that we don't know. Despite what the news headline says, the truth is that none of us, not even the smartest individual, know what the future holds. We all want definite answers to complex questions about the future. But that is just not possible. In 1937, T. Rowe Price, the founder of Baltimore-based investment firm, wrote an essay titled, Change, the Investor's Only Certainty. Struggling to understand the geopolitical situation of the late 1930s, Price wrote this about Hitler's rise to power and Germany's intention of Europe. Germany will acquire territory, preferably through peaceful means. 2 years later, Hitler invaded Poland and plunged the world into World War II. Everything changed, but not in the ways that Price or anyone else could predict with any precision. So understand that the future is influenced by an almost infinite number of factors. There are so many factors that it's impossible to predict future events with any consistency. And the more comfortable we get this fact sooner, the better it will be for us. In talking about how to deal with uncertainty, do you know what also really helps with managing anxiety when it comes to the unknown? Knowledge. Which is why I want to recommend you check out Shortform. Shortform is a platform that produces super high quality guides to nonfiction books. They have thousands of books within many categories like money and finance, self-improvement, and business. And their guides not only cover all the book's key ideas, but add commentary as well as detailed analysis. And they're also constantly expanding their library by dropping new book guides and articles every week, and subscribers like you and I even get to vote on which books they should cover next. Whether you want to discover new books or want to get deeper insight about some of your favorite books, if you want to get serious about expanding your knowledge of the world, Shortform is the perfect companion. Join through my special link today and get a free trial of unlimited access to Shortform, plus an additional 20% discount on the annual subscription. It's not only a great way to grow your brain, but a great way to support this channel as well when you use my link below. Alright, with that said, let's go back to the video. The number 4 thing school doesn't teach us, but probably should. How to rest. To push ourselves to a point of failure at times can help us to achieve great things. However, to do it all the time is not only physically and emotionally impossible, it's not very wise. Some of us think we can focus for 10 hours straight when science teaches us that that is not possible. Some of us think we can work effectively for 12 hours straight without rest when science shows us that our effectiveness diminishes after just a few hours. In the book, The Power of Full Engagement by Jim Lohr and Tony Schwartz, the two performance psychologists try to identify the key difference between the greatest performing tennis players and everyone else. And what was interesting was that they couldn't find any significant difference in their skill sets or their abilities. But what they did find was how differently each player was using the time between points. The greatest tennis players used this key time between points when they would walk back to the baseline, bounce the tennis ball, and get ready for the match by effectively resting. They mastered the ability to lower their heart rate, take a breather, and renew themselves for the next match, whereas most lower ranked players had no recovery routine at all. When hooked up to an EKG, the lower ranked players' heart rates remained amped up at all times, while the greatest players were able to regulate their heart rates between the match and the time between points. They had mastered the ability to effectively rest, so when it came down to the key moments in the match, they were able to give their 110%. By the end of the game, the greatest players didn't beat their opponents most often through skill, but through sheer exhaustion. The lower ranked players didn't know how to regulate their energy level. They had spent all their energy well into the game. High performers in tennis and life know how to regulate their energy level through effective rest. They know how to renew themselves effectively, so when it comes to game time, they can focus and win. We live in a world that celebrates work and activity, ignores renewal and recovery, and fails to recognize that both are necessary for sustained high performance. The number 5 thing school doesn't teach us, but probably should. Effective time management. To me, good time management is really the start of good life management. It's not about the latest productivity tools, waking up at 5 a.m. to take a cold bath, or building out a crazy minute-by-minute schedule. It's simply about the ability to make progress in the things that are most important to us. Here are 2 of my favorite time management habits that have really helped me to manage my life. Number 1, ruthless prioritization. Effective time management is not about doing everything, it's about doing the most important things, which also means we're letting everything else that's not number 1 on our list drop to the sidelines. One of the most important exercises that I do at the end of each day is to go through my to-do list and cut out things I'm not going to focus on tomorrow. I ask myself, what is my highest priority? What is my biggest lever? Then everything else that is not my highest lever gets deleted or rescheduled to a different date. This exercise is very uncomfortable for many people because instead of seeing what they're going to focus on, they see all the items they can't do. We think, only if I can finish the first item a bit quicker, I can get to these 3 other things. It won't take long. I can have 5 priorities tomorrow. But what happens often is that we only get to 3 of the 5 things on our list and we feel like a failure. Or we do get to do all 5 things on our list, but we do them at a subpar level. Don't give yourself this option. Ruthlessly prioritize. My second favorite time management habit, once we've ruthlessly identified our priority, then ruthlessly focus. Not letting any distraction get in the way of me completing the task I set out as my number 1 priority. I turn off my phone notification, I close all my web browsers, I close my door, and then set my alarm for at least 45 minutes. Then I don't stop work until the alarm goes off. And that's it. Just these 2 habits, ruthlessly prioritize and ruthlessly focus. I use tools like my whiteboard, my Google Calendar, and my task tracker app to help me organize, but at the end of the day, these 2 habits are what I try to practice on a daily basis. And when I do these 2 over and over again, each day for a long period of time, I notice myself making real progress. Number 6 thing school doesn't teach us, but probably should. Basics about money. I didn't learn about credit scores, credit cards, interest rates, and home mortgages until well into my adulthood. And this was only after making tons of mistakes. Mistakes in hindsight that could have been avoided if I had learned some basic money skills. Here are a few I consider crucial, especially for people just coming into the workforce. Credit card management. Learning the importance of paying off your credit card on time. Don't get too close to your credit limit and check your credit report regularly to ensure accuracy. As you get into later stages of life, where you might want to make bigger purchases such as a home or a car, your credit score will play a major role in that. You ignore this when you're young and you can be paying thousands in extra interest payments that you could easily have avoided. 2. Debt management. Once you're out of school, that is also a time when you'll start encountering debts in your life. apart from student loans, of course. Car loans, home loans, and even business loans. You want to understand the basics of interest rates. Fixed, variable, and promotional. It could feel daunting, but the math behind these products are not college-level calculus. If you can do basic plus, minus, and multiplication, you can figure it out. If you don't understand the basics of debt and how interest rates work, some shady individuals might even try to take advantage of you by pushing non-optimal debt products on you. Put them in their place and educate yourself. 3. The power of automation. Learn how to automate your bill payments, transfer, and direct deposit. These are almost basic features for all banks and credit card companies now. Direct deposit your paycheck, automate your 401k withdrawals, auto-pay your credit card and bills, and auto-transfer your investments. Automating your finances is one of the surest ways to guarantee a better financial future. When you automate, you don't have to worry about making the right money decisions. The right money decisions are being made for you. But it's not good enough to just learn these basic money skills. We have to convert that knowledge to wealth, which leads to the next thing school doesn't teach us. Number 7 thing school doesn't teach us, but probably should. Real wealth building principles. And learning how to build wealth is not rocket science. I learned it well into my 30s, and if I could do it, you can too. So let me share with you 3 of my wealth principles. 1. Develop a strong aversion to debt. I know we talked about credit scores and debt management earlier, but I firmly believe that debt is not a wealth building tool. For most people, it's actually a wealth destroyer. Debt by nature increases our ability to buy more, which in turn increases lifestyle purchases, and in the long run, keeps us enslaved to debt obligations. It's hard to completely avoid debt, but if you live your life being comfortable with debt, it'll be extremely hard to build sustainable wealth. 2. Always aim to spend less than you earn. When you have low overhead, this is one of your greatest weapons that you can use to ride out the uncertainties of life. You lose your job, not a problem. You can stretch your cash for the next 6 months until you find a better job. If you have low overhead because you condition yourself to always live below your means, you have flexibility to adjust, and your risk is naturally mitigated because you don't have major liabilities. 3. Use a simple, broad stock market index fund as your primary wealth building tool. I feel like too many people get too fancy with their investments too quickly and too early. Yes, there are times for dabbling in interesting cool investments like real estate syndication and private startups. However, these all come after one has built a strong foundation of wealth. Wealth based on very boring and very simple, broad stock market index funds. There's so much power to holding a giant basket of just about every US stock that people underestimate. And if you follow these wealth building principles, you're essentially in a better financial position than 95% of people out there. Before we go to the next thing that school doesn't teach us, make sure to download your free 1-page companion PDF guide that goes along with this video. Everything I'm covering here in a simple to digest 1-page format. So go to the link I'll have in the description below to grab your free copy. Number 8 thing school doesn't teach us, but probably should. How to effectively communicate. How to have a real conversation. One of my favorite books on this topic is Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People. There are tons of lessons from this book, but my favorite lesson to have a real conversation is this. Ruthlessly focus. Give exclusive attention to the person that you're speaking to. Have you ever had a conversation with someone who seems distracted? Not looking at you, but looking around? Or even when they're looking at you, you get a sense that they're not really hearing what you're saying. They're so concerned about what they're going to say next, they're not even really listening to you. Or worse, they're looking for someone else to talk to. How do you feel after that engagement? Probably not that great. This person violated one of the most fundamental principles of human interaction, attention. They didn't give you the attention that you deserved. There is no secret sauce to having a real conversation, having people like you, or building your network of authentic relationships. When you're in a conversation, give exclusive attention to the person that you're speaking to. Make that person feel like they're the most important person in that room. Be interested in that person. Genuinely listen and ask follow-up questions that the other person will enjoy answering. Encourage them to talk more about themselves and their accomplishments. And afterwards, don't be surprised if after the talk, they consider you one of the most interesting conversations they ever met. Number 9 thing school doesn't teach us, but probably should. How to make decisions. When I was a young Army lieutenant, one of the principles of Army leadership that was hammered into our minds was regarding decision making. Our commanders always told us, a good leader makes decisions. Even when you feel like you don't have all the information, even when you feel like your decision could be the wrong one, you have to get comfortable at making decisions. In combat situations, soldiers are looking to you as a leader to lead them. And if you're not leading them because you're afraid of making decisions, you're no longer an effective leader. But getting comfortable with decision making is hard. What if you make the wrong decision? What if there was a better one that you only realize afterwards? What if you feel like you're just not good at making decisions? Well, how to remedy that? Good decisions come from experience. Experience comes from making bad decisions. Here are a few tips that have helped me to become better at decision making. 1. Not to make decisions when I'm emotionally charged. When I'm angry or tired, I tend to make decisions based on how I'm feeling instead of looking at the situation from an objective perspective. 2. In the line of objective perspective, writing out the implication of each decision. If I choose this, what are the consequences? What is the worst that can happen? What are the pros and cons of each decision? 3. If I'm really stuck, research how other people have made similar decisions. Ask around the research online. People in a similar predicament predicament, how did they approach it? Were the circumstances in which they made their decision similar to mine? And what can I learn from their decision? Our schools love order and structure, so many of us don't get the opportunity to really practice our decision-making muscles until we're out of school. However, that does not mean we can't develop it later in life. Number 10 things school doesn't teach us but probably should. How to manage our health. Today, roughly 2 out of 3 American adults are overweight, and 1 out of 3 are obese. And this is not just a US problem anymore. Recent global estimates found that almost 10% of men and 14% of females in the world are obese, nearly double the rate of obesity in 1980. Unless you're a nutrition or a kinesiology major, the fact is that you likely never learned much about nutrition, diet, or appropriate exercise in school. I sure didn't. Most of them I learned through personal experiments, failures, and online. Everyone's health approach is different, but here are 3 of my favorite habits that have helped me to maintain my health into my 40s. 1. Proper sleep. It is so easy to push our sleep into later and later at night, and Netflix does not help. Therefore, I force myself to be in bed by at least 10 p.m. every night, weekdays and weekends. A trick that has really helped me is to have no electronic device in my bedroom. Instead, I have an analog alarm clock and my Kindle e-reader on my bedstand. There's nothing like a good book to help you fall asleep and a good alarm clock to wake you up. 2. Minimize processed food from my diet. If it didn't grow from a tree or came from an animal in that form, I try not to eat it. Of course, this can't be 100% of the time. I try to follow the 80-20 rule. As long as I can get 80% of my diet from healthy whole foods, I feel like I'm winning. 3. Physical activity. Get at least 30 minutes of physical activity per day. I like weight training, but any activity is good. As long as you fulfill your physical activity needs without it feeling like something that you dread. That's it. Good sleep, minimal processed food, and regular physical activity. If you can do these 3 on a regular basis, I feel like you're managing your health better than most people out there. Thank you guys for watching. In the spirit of living your best life, please check out my video here where I talk about the different strategies to get motivated and achieve more. Until next time, all the best.